Lucasfilms has been in hot water ever since they fired Gina Carano, and let's look at the bigger picture here. They've been in hot water for years, ever since Disney bought Lucasfilm and Star Wars. All they've done is make terrible content. They've put out a terrible Star Wars trilogy. They've put out terrible books like The High Republic, and they fired one of the main actresses to an amazing show, The Mandalorian. And I'm someone who doesn't think Gina Carano should have gotten fired. It's pretty sad that companies bow down to outrage on the internet and fire people because of it. And last week, a hit piece was actually put out against a few YouTubers who have been critical of Star Wars, specifically The Last Jedi, by a podcast named Rewriting Ripley. Now, funnily enough, the article focuses mainly on males and doesn't really talk much at all about females who have been critical of Star Wars because, of course, that ruin the narratives these crazy people are trying to push. And they said in that article they were going to try to deplatform creators they didn't like, that their videos should be reported because they're basically toxic, disgusting people in their eyes. And it's now coming out that these people are affiliated with Lucasfilm. They are targeting people just for being critical of Star Wars, and they've already gotten posts removed off of Twitter, videos and live streams removed off of YouTube, and I think we're about to see this situation explode. Now, before I get into the tweets that I'm going to be referencing, I want to say, of course, please do not go and attack these people. Don't go to their Twitter or their articles and leave comments. Just ignore them. They did delete their personal Twitter accounts, which, oh, that's not suspicious if you're innocent, but the Ripley podcast one is still active. Please don't go and send them any sort of negative comments. They will just end up using that against everyone. In the first article that Rewriting Ripley put up, they attacked tons of channels. Ethan Van Sciver, The Quartering, Geeks and Gamers. I mean, they put a lot of thought into their words, which makes their attacks even worse because they knew they wanted to deplatform specific people, and here we are. It's happening. Ethan Van Sciver had a stream of his taken down for hate speech because an out-of-context joke was shared on Twitter. We've got them accusing The Quartering of doxing them, and now, of course, they're being called out. Did they not think that people would look over their profiles and public information? Because everything here is public information, and they could be sued over the claims that they made in their article and on Twitter, and I'd wager that it'll happen. So the first thread I want to reference is one by Data Racer. So the Rewriting Ripley podcast trying to deplatform Star Wars YouTubers is being run by a Raylo SJW. She says The Last Jedi haters' opinions are violent, have damaged her mental health, and she fears for her life because fans criticized a movie. I don't understand how you could say if you don't like The Last Jedi, your opinions are violent, or The Last Jedi haters' opinions are violent. That is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. But here are some tweets that are worded exactly the same, which is linking her to the Rewriting Ripley podcast. So the Rewriting Ripley podcast had tweeted out, aided by an analysis of over 1 million tweets and 1K YouTube videos, this is the full story of alt-right radicalization in the Star Wars fandom. And if you go to their Twitter account or their personal Twitter account, these are of course screenshots, they had tweeted out this exact wording back in February, saying, anyway, at Valkyrie Art and I will be discussing this in a few weeks, backed by 1 million tweets and 1K YouTube videos, and they're the exact same type of text as well, writing as well, because they don't put a space in between the and, 1 million tweets, 1K YouTube videos. It's very easy to link this person with this account just by these alone. And then of course they do tag another account at Valkyrie Art, which people definitely looked into before she deleted her account. Both of these people have deleted their accounts. So scrolling down, Data Racer continues, Last year, Lucasfilm's social media manager put out a call for data analysts to help her make this fandom better. Very interesting because they also talk about data analytics. To help her make this fandom better, it says, she was introduced to Katie and made connections with other SJW data scientists who have tried to deplatform the fandom menace off of YouTube. This was all very suspect, and it definitely was. This is a very big connection to someone working for Lucasfilm because they are the social media manager of the Star Wars brand. So if we go to these screenshots, here we have it. This was the Star Wars social media marketing manager, the social media manager, that's just what they're called. Hi Twitter, do I have any academics that follow me on here who are experts in fandom and particularly fandoms in relation to digital culture online? Would love to chat with you. This was back in January 2020. Thanks. Just trying to turn these into action items so we can try to help make things better on my end. Really would welcome the input of non-cis white men and women so we can make this a better fandom for everyone. Of course, they are holding a prejudice against cis white men and women here. Is that a shock? Not at all. But continuing on with the screenshots, this of course is Michelle Bookman. It of course in their description says writer runs social media at Star Wars. And of course, to no one's surprise, in formal majesty, the person whose screenshots I had just previously showed, saying that the Last Jedi haters' opinions are violent, was in direct contact with Michelle, saying, "Hi Michelle, happy to talk," and Michelle was responding to this person, saying things like, "Followed you, if you want a DM, best email to reach out to me," and then of course, in formal majesty, which her Twitter account clearly says her name is Katie, said, "Hey, really appreciate the shout out. I am definitely not an academic, just a data analyst. Thank you for thinking of me though." And of course they go on to say things like, "Feel free to DM me again." And here are all of the people that were affiliated with this tweet and who were talking. And of course, Katie had tweeted out in the past, "If you're a woman who has participated in online fandom before, you probably know this story. For everybody else, here's a summary of what it's like. 4 years of data, over 400 screenshots, over 500,000 data points, and over 9,000 words nobody should ever have to write." Continuing down though, Data Racer had put out more tweets on the situation, saying Lucasfilm executive Pablo Hidalgo started following the Rewriting Ripley podcast after she launched the mass flag attacks. This is absolutely no surprise at all whatsoever that someone at Star Wars, a Lucasfilm executive, started following this podcast who has been attacking Star Wars fans, who has been openly writing articles, calling them disgusting things, naming them political titles that they really aren't, trying to paint them in a very negative light so people won't like them, so people will maybe mass flag their accounts and mass flag the content that they create. So I wanted to scroll back up really quickly and reread this tweet by Informal Majesty. They specifically said, "At Valkyrie Art and I will be discussing this in a few weeks, backed by over 1 million tweets and 1K YouTube videos." They are clearly tying Valkyrie Art into this situation, and no one really had any archives about Valkyrie Art's Twitter because they also deleted their Twitter account, so there's not much to say there, but clearly Valkyrie Art is in on this situation too. They were behind the Rewriting Ripley podcast as well, but it's mainly been this Informal Majesty slash Katie person who's been making a lot of claims because she actually went onto the Rewriting Ripley podcast Twitter account and tried to accuse the quartering of doxing her. Now, I only know her first name. Her first name is Katie. She's put it on Twitter. It was her Twitter handle, and the quartering never actually called her by her first and last name. If he did find her last name, he did say that he did find both of these people's full names, but they had tweeted out, "Thank you all for the support. I have just been doxed by the quartering. We fully expected this, and I am sure many of you are aware that this is what they do by Katie." And quartering had tweeted out, "Your full name was listed on your podcast website, Katie. I didn't dox you at all. Nice try playing the victim, but you were the one who printed lies and have been on a deplatforming campaign for the last month." And then he followed it up with saying, "For the record, I also never said your full name." Yeah, I didn't see the quartering tweet out anyone's full name, and usually quartering doesn't do that because he doesn't want people sending hate their way or sending negativity their way. He always says, "Don't interact with these people." He said, "This is a pathetic attempt to smear me on your way out the door. Everything I said was public info, and in fact, I purposely held back your last name, even though that is also public on your own podcast website." So first of all, we have this podcast that is trying to deplatform people, who is smearing people, slandering people, attacking people, but then they went on to try to twist the situation, saying the quartering doxed me. We all knew this was gonna happen because this is what they do. They, probably just meaning people in the Star Wars community who didn't like the new trilogy. But they went on to say, "We specifically made sure that our names wouldn't be anywhere public, including our Twitter handles. This also includes information on the podcast website, and the Medium article. I wrote a 50-page article essentially on Gamergate. We were well aware of the risks." Their article was a smear campaign. Their article was garbage. They didn't actually really talk about Gamergate at all. Gamergate wasn't just some harassment campaign. Gamergate was about ethics in video game journalism and censorship and things that actually matter. Their article was about what people like Anita Sarkeesian deem Gamergate was about. It wasn't actually about Gamergate. Now look, there are definitely connections here between these two people who've admitted they were doing content together, and a high-ranking Lucasfilm employee following the podcast, and the social media manager for Star Wars interacting with these people. So we can't say how deep this goes, but at one level or another, there's been communication between Lucasfilm employees and these people. Aside from Lucasfilm connections or not, this is a clear attempt by these individuals to slander, cancel, and deplatform people for what they believe is wrong thing. I want to bring up one more tweet because the quartering said, "The person behind rewriting Ripley works for Crystal Dynamics, which has the Marvel's Avengers game, which leads to the Disney tie-in." Now, of course, he said there was no evidence of this, so I can't confirm this, but I'm also not going to deny it. I would entertain any type of theory at this point, because there is so much here, and we don't know how deep this goes. It could go much deeper than just this. And of course, I had actually retweeted a few of their posts because they were saying things like the quartering doxed us and all we did was talk about Gamergate and they blocked me. I had just retweeted, or actually just tweeted, where it says they blocked me, and I said, "I've never blocked a critic of mine. My block list is 100% empty. Apparently, theirs is growing by the minute. I've never blocked a critic of mine. I never will. My block list is empty." And it's pretty pathetic that they put out hit articles about people. They slander people, they're lying about people, and they thought that that was okay. I have a feeling they are in for a lot of lawsuits soon, and I have a bad feeling that they're going to lose. Well, it's good for YouTubers because we don't want to be slandered by people, but it's very, very bad for them. But let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video and found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.